These two teams would not meet again in an official tournament for 33 years. The matchup would end up being in Copa America 1993. This would be a big year for Copa America as non-CONMEBOL teams were invited to participate. On top of this, 1993 marked a big change for the tournament, the return of knockout stages. In 1975, CONMEBOL changed the format of the tournament from a round-robin tournament to a group stage with a knockout stage. It's very similar to how many tournaments are played today. However, in 1989, they briefly changed to a format that has a group stage, and instead of a group stage, the winners and runner-ups were put in another group, and whoever had the most points at the end was the cup winner. Thankfully, in 1993, CONMEBOL came to their senses and brought back the knockout stage. At this point in history, Mexico has grown a lot as a national team. Though they were banned from Italy 1990, Mexico had gone from crashing out constantly from the group stage to making the quarterfinals twice in a 16-year period. And after 1990 and before 2022, Mexico would become a mainstay in the World Cup, always making it past the group stage, but seemingly cursed in the purgatory that is the round of 16. As outside of the two World Cups they hosted in 1970 and 86, Mexico has not won a knockout game. And it's not just being outplayed by the better team. Italy always finds a way to give hope to the fans before stomping on their hopes and dreams. Now, when we look at Argentina, it seems as if they changed what tournament they focused on during this time. They went from not doing well at World Cups and dominating Copa America to winning 2 World Cups in 3 attempts between 78 and 86. But they ended up going on a 32-year Copa America drought, going 8 tournaments before they finally won one in 91. Just 7 years prior to this matchup, Argentina had won the 86 World Cup and lost the 1990 World Cup in the final due to a penalty in the 85th minute. They were also on a 25-game unbeaten streak going into the tournament, but they were missing their GOAT, Maradona, who was given a 15-month suspension from all soccer-related activities in April of 91. And although he was able to return in late 92, he wasn't able to return to form. He had an unsuccessful stint with Sevilla and several appearances with Argentina, but nothing major. The team's coveted number 10 was then handed to Atletico Madrid legend and then Sevilla star Diego Simeone. His partner in midfield was Fernando Rendon. In the following year, Rendon would secure a move to Real Madrid where he would become El Príncipe. He would carve out an amazing legacy in 6 years with the team before moving to Milan for the final 4 years of his career. The team was captained by Oscar Ruggeri, a former Real Madrid player who was at the time playing with Club America, but he was a key defender with a nose for goals. And then leading them up front was the legendary Gabriel Batistuta, top goal scorer of the 91 Copa America, who at the time was playing for Fiorentina and would later become Argentina's all-time leading goal scorer before a certain GOAT would come and surpass him 14 years later. In goal was keeper Sergio Goycoechea. He made his name in the 1990 World Cup where he replaced the then starter Neri Pumpido due to injury. He kept Argentina alive in several games with a clean sheet versus Brazil in the second round and several penalty saves in the quarters and semis. He also nearly blocked the West German penalty in the finals, so that's something at least. He was named second in IFFHS World's Best Goalkeeper twice, once in 91 and another in 93. He would also be a member of the FIFA 11 in 91 and would go on to win Copa America Player of the Tournament. The team would also have several other FIFA 11 players as well, so this is a completely stacked team. Leading Mexico in goal was the great and always well-dressed Jorge Campos, who stood at a towering 5'5". As flamboyant as a JoJo character, he was considered one of the greatest goalkeepers of his generation and was third in the IFFHS Best Goalkeeper list in 93. He was also a good goal scorer as well, as he had 34 goals in his career and would play striker several times for his club, including this banger of a goal in 97 where he scored a scissor kick in a game where he started as goalkeeper but was moved to striker due to lack of goals. On the wing was Dr. Luis Garcia, who actually came off the bench for both games versus Argentina, but was a player for Atletico de Madrid. These two, along with 𝒐𝒔𝒄𝒌, who also featured in this tournament, make up 3/4 of one of the best commentary teams along with Martinoli for TV Azteca. Leading them up front as captain was the legendary Hugo Sanchez. He had recently returned to Mexico the year before after setting Spain on fire. One of the greatest strikers in Real Madrid and Atletico de Madrid history, but at this point he was well past his prime at 35. This matchup would be the second set of games in the group stage. During the first set of games, Mexico lost to Colombia 2-1, but Argentina beat Bolivia 1-0. This match took place on June 20th, 1993 in el Estadio 𝒓𝒂𝒄𝒌 in Guayaquil, Ecuador. The game was pretty even. In the 14th minute, thanks to an impressive run by 𝒐𝒔𝒄𝒌, the subsequent pass led to a foul right outside the box, and while Argentina was getting ready to build the wall, David Patiño was creeping on the right side of the box. Patiño's looking at Hugo Sanchez, makes sure he's onside, and then signals he wants a 3-ball, which Hugo Sanchez obliges him. A good strong finish, and Mexico opens up the scoring 1-0 in the 15th minute. In the 28th minute, Mexico fails to clear a loose ball in the box. The ball slips through to an open Oscar Ruggeri, who makes it 1-1 with ease. And that's how the game ended, a 1-1 draw. After the next set of games where Mexico drew 0-0 with Bolivia and Argentina drew 1-1 with Colombia, the group was finalized. Argentina will be second behind Colombia, and Mexico barely edges out Bolivia for third place thanks to a tiebreaker for goals for. Argentina had to face a struggling Brazil, a team who qualified to knockouts due to a win in the last match day against Paraguay. This Brazilian squad drew in Peru and lost 3-2 to Chile. In the quarters, Argentina barely edges out Brazil on penalties after drawing 1-1. Everyone was singing the praise for 𝒂𝒄𝒌. His decisive save in the shootout allowed Argentina to win 6-5. In the semis, they had a rematch from Colombia where they drew with the score 0-0. And again winning in penalties 6-5 thanks again to 𝒂𝒄𝒌 saving the ball. With grit and fantastic performances by their goalkeeper, Argentina was in the final. At the end of the group stage, the three third place teams were ranked and the top two teams would make it to the knockout stages. The first third place team was Paraguay with 3 points. Mexico and Venezuela were tied in terms of points for second, but Mexico got the nod due to having a better goal difference for -1, while Venezuela was at -5. You'd think going into the knockout stages that Mexico would just lose to the first team they played, which ended up being Peru, who just won their group. But in the quarters, Mexico would easily go on to defeat Peru 4-2, the 2 goals being allowed after they were already up 4. In the semis, Mexico played the host Ecuador, and thanks to goals from Hugo and the man that was supposed to take the crown as best Mexican player from Hugo, Ramon Ramirez, they won 2-0, getting them into the finals in a dominant fashion. The two teams were set to meet in the final. And before we get to that, let's take a minute to look at the Mexican team again. In midfield, you had Ramon Ramirez, who at 23 was believed to be the next great Mexican hope. His partner in the midfield was Chivas legend Benjamín El Maestro Galindo. Also in the middle was the great Alberto Garcia-Aspe. Leading the backline was a 24-year-old Claudio El Emperador Suarez, who would retire as Mexico's all-time leader in caps, a record that won't be broken until 2022. And the matchup would look to be the battle of the strikers, Batistuta and Hugo Sanchez. A legend on his last legs and a man that was well on his way to becoming a legend at the age of 24. The final took place on the 4th of July 1993. It was played in the Estadio Monumental in Guayaquil in front of a crowd of 40,000 people, doubling their last matchup. The game was evenly matched, maybe even favoring Mexico in the early stages. It was high-paced, but in the 63rd minute, Gabriel Batistuta scored the opener for Argentina with a hard strike to the near post to beat Campos. However, 4 minutes later, Benjamín Galindo finds 𝒐𝒔𝒄𝒌 with a beautiful pass as he rounds the keeper. However, he is fouled, leading to a penalty. Now let's take a minute to put things into perspective. This is the biggest match between the two teams at this point. Some may even argue that this is the biggest game Mexico had played to this point. It is definitely in the top 3 games for me at this point, being out by the 2 quarterfinal games they played in the 70 and 86 World Cup respectively. In front of 40,000 people against the best penalty stopper in the game, Galindo is up to take it. With all the pressure in the world on his shoulders, he's able to send 𝒂𝒄𝒌 the other way to equalize the game. In a sort of poetic justice from the first game, when Mexico caught the Argentinian defense off guard, Simeone finds the Mexican defense off guard off a quick throw-in, and Batigol puts Argentina up for good in the 74th minute with an insane left-footed strike. And just like that, Mexico's Cinderella story ended. A 2nd place finish in their first appearance of the oldest and arguably most competitive and prestigious international tournament not called the World Cup. It's nothing to scoff at. And for Argentina, this would be the last Copa America they win for 28 years until the 2021 Copa America. 1993 was a pivotal moment for this matchup as it showed that Mexico had gone from being the team that was always in the last place positions in World Cups to competing with the big boys of South America. Let's fast forward to about a decade later when Ricardo 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 became manager of Mexico at the end of 2002, replacing 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, who had led Mexico to topping their group in the 2002 World Cup before losing in embarrassing fashion to their arch rivals, the US, 2-0 in the round of 16. The hiring of 𝒂𝒂💂💂 would shoot the Mexican national team into a new golden era for Mexican soccer. After winning the 2003 Gold Cup unbeaten and defeating a U23 Brazil team led by Kaká and Robinho in the opening game and in the final 1-0, 𝒂𝒂💂💂 set his sights on a much more prestigious tournament, the 2004 Copa America. After the 1993 second place finish and a disappointing 95 campaign, Mexico will go on to come in third in back-to-back tournaments in 97 and 99, and then a heartbreaking 1-0 loss to Colombia in the finals in 01. Many were asking the question, could 𝒂𝒂💂💂 lead his team to do the unprecedented by winning the marquee tournament of a confederation they weren't even a part of? It seemed very likely as Mexico was ranked 4th in the FIFA rankings ahead of any tournament member other than Brazil. And while FIFA rankings are inherently flawed since it doesn't rank a team on their current form or overall talent, and instead tries to use math to rationalize a game when the numbers are heavily based on past glory, it's extremely impressive that Mexico was even able to reach those heights. And don't get me wrong, 𝒂𝒂💂💂 isn't the sole reason for Mexico's high ranking. The high finishes in Copa America, making the round of 16 in the World Cup several times, and winning the 99 Confederations Cup against Brazil of all teams, as well as several Gold Cups were a major factor. Anyway, back to Copa America 2004. Mexico's group was made up of Uruguay, Ecuador, and our old friend Argentina, who featured a young Carlos Tevez, Javier Marciano, and was led by their captain Roberto Ayala, who played at Valencia at the time, Gabriel Heinze, who had just moved from PSG to United a month earlier, and Inter's Javier Zanetti. Leading 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 3 was Barça's Rafa Márquez, who had been captaining El Tri since the 2002 World Cup at the ripe age of 23. In goal was Mexican legend Osvaldo Sanchez. The anchor in the midfield was future Bundesliga winner Pavel Pardo, and leading them up front was Javier Borghetti, who scored an absolute banger on Buffon and Maldini's Italy. And while Italy did score an equalizer later in the game, this draw was enough to lead Mexico to top their group. Argentina was managed by the legendary Marcelo Bielsa. One of the most influential managers in the modern era, Bielsa has a coaching tree of over 163 directors and coaches with names such as Diego Simeone, Matias Almeida, Gerardo Martino, Mauricio Pochettino, and Santiago Solari all playing under him. Other notable managers such as former Chile manager Jorge Sampaoli and Pep Guardiola have also credited him for being an influence to them. The game was played in the Estadio Elias Aguirre in Chiclayo, Peru. The two teams faced off in an intense game. In the 8th minute, Mexico has a free kick opportunity on the right side of the box. Lined up to take it on the left-footed side is Chivas star Ramoncito Morales. And on the right-footed side is Rafa Márquez. Both of them had the reputation of being set-piece specialists, with Rafa even taking a few free kicks in his stint at Barça instead of Ronaldinho. However, the shot is taken by Ramoncito. The result? This banger of a free kick that curls to the near post, catching the keeper off guard. From there on, the game was hard fought, but Argentina was never able to equalize, though both teams had their chances. With this result and a 2-1 win against Ecuador a few days later, Mexico ended up as the top of the group with 7 points. Argentina secured second thanks to a 4-2 victory against Uruguay. The knockout stage was set and Mexico was flying high. Fate is a cruel mistress though, and as fate would have it, Brazil ended up struggling during the group stages. And thanks to a 2-1 loss to Paraguay during their final group stage game, they ended up in 2nd place. They were set to face Mexico in the quarterfinals. There was no happy ending for Mexico. After finally defeating Argentina in an official FIFA-sanctioned tournament, they were absolutely demolished by Brazil 4-0. For Argentina, the loss to Mexico was a blessing in disguise as they were able to dodge Brazil in the quarters. Instead, they matched up against Peru, who was second in their group. Argentina would go on to win that game 1-0 thanks to a 60th minute goal by Carlos Tevez. In the semis, they would face Group A winners Colombia, where they were easily beat 3-0. In the final, they will face off against Brazil. And in a game for the history books that frankly deserves its own video, the South American Giants would end up drawing 2-2 after full time thanks to a 93rd minute banger by Brazilian striker Adriano. They would go on to penalties where thanks to a combination of heroics by Brazilian keeper Júlio César and 𝒐𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌 kicking the ball to space, Brazil was crowned kings of South America for the third time in 4 tournaments. This would be Argentina's best finish since winning it all in '93. Mexico, on the other hand, couldn't help but feel disappointed by the performance. They crashed out in the quarters after coming into this tournament very highly ranked and finally overcoming Argentina and winning the group only to face the defending world champions. It wouldn't take long for the two teams to meet again, thanks to the 2005 Confederations Cup. The Confederations Cup, if you were unaware, was a tournament that was held the year before the World Cup, usually hosted by the host country for that World Cup cycle. Going into the Confederations Cup 2005, Mexico was ranked 6th in the world while Argentina was ranked 3rd. Only the winners of the confederations, the host, and the reigning world champions were invited for the most part, with the exception being if the reigning world champion had also won their respective confederation. And because they won the 2003 Gold Cup, Mexico punched its ticket to the tournament. Since Brazil were the reigning world champions as well as Copa America champions, the 𝒂𝒄𝒌 spot was given to the Copa America runner-up, Argentina. Although it was only a year later, Argentina's team was pretty different as they opted to bring over a much younger squad, with 𝒎𝒐𝒂𝒄𝒌 at 31 being the only over 30. There were only 6 out of 23 overlap players between Copa America 2004 and the Confederations Cup. Mexicano, 𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒌, 𝒐𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, and 𝒎𝒂𝒂𝒂 were among those 6. Mexico also opted to bring over a much younger team, with only 2 over 30 players in 𝒐𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 and Osvaldo Sanchez. The overlap between the two were slightly more than Argentina's, as 𝒎𝒂𝒃 decided to bring over 10 players from the Copa America squad. Argentina was now led by José Pekerman, who had a very unique way of picking his squad that I'll go into later. Mexico went unbeaten in the group stage after coming from behind to beat Asian Cup winners Japan, and then they got revenge for last year's embarrassing loss in the quarters by beating a strong Brazil team with Ronaldinho, Kaká, Robinho, and a prime Adriano, thanks to a goal in the 59th by 𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂. With the spot in the next round already clinched, they drew with Euro winners Greece 0-0. And then thanks to a goal in the 88th minute by Japanese forward Masai Oguro, Japan was able to earn a draw from the edge of the defeat against Brazil, clinching the first place for Mexico in the process. Argentina was in the group with the host Germany, African Cup of Nations winners Tunisia, and Oceania Nation Cup winners Australia. They beat Tunisia 2-1, Australia 4-2, and edged out a draw with Germany 2-2. They came in second behind Germany due to the latter having a better goal difference by 1. And now it was set, both Mexico and Argentina were set to face each other in the semifinals. It was to be played in the Hanover Stadion on June 26, 2005. The two teams fought hard for 90 minutes with both teams having their fair share of chances. But thanks to poor finishing, some epic goal line finishes, the post getting in the way of a few shots, and of course amazing goalkeeping for both sides, neither team were able to score and full time ended at a 0-0 draw. 2 red cards were given, 1 for each team. Javier Saviola earned his in the 90th minute for Argentina, getting a straight red on a dirty play on Mexico's Gonzalo Pineda. A few moments later, Rafa Márquez was sent off after earning the second yellow due to a dirty challenge on Pablo Aimar. Mexico's Carlos Salcido put a 3 on top thanks in part to an amazing run, horrid defending from 𝒎𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂 and 𝒐𝒊𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂𝒂, and the ball bouncing off Federico Coloccini into the goal. Argentina was able to pull level in the 110th minute thanks to Luciano Figueroa, who had a ball fall to him after a Mexican defender blocked a shot. Unmarked in the box for the second time in a span of minutes, El Lucho made up for his last mistake where he had an open goal and kicked the ball right to the Mexican goalkeeper. This time he controlled the ball with an amazing touch and then slid to the ball, ignoring a late reacting Ricardo Osorio, through the legs of Osvaldo Sanchez and barely past the outstretched legs of Carlos Salcido. No team were able to pull ahead for the remaining 10 minutes of the game, and once the clock hit 1:20, the two teams went into a penalty shootout. Both teams took their penalties with great class and elegance, and after each team set up 5 shooters, it was 5-5. The best of which was taken by Mexican midfielder Gonzalo Pineda, who shot 5th for the Mexican side and confidently chipped it past Germán Lux. There's a common saying about how great players rise to the occasion, and so far each player, with the immense pressure that is the hopes of their entire nations, rose to the occasion, but someone had to crack under pressure. To the dismay of a country of 106 million people at the time, the person to crack was Mexican defender Ricardo Osorio. Osorio, as you may remember, was one of the defenders alongside Carlos Salcido that lost track of Lucho Figueroa and allowed him to equalize. With one mistake already in his head, he took a weak penalty that was easily blocked by Lux. Argentina was just one penalty away from the final against Brazil. All the pressure rested on Inter's Esteban Cambiaso, and with a confident shot that Osvaldo was nowhere near, Cambiaso rose to the occasion and sent his country to the final. Mexico ended up losing the third place game in a thriller against Germany, 4-3. That one went to extra time as well and was settled by this absolute banger of a free kick by Michael Ballack. It was becoming all too common for the Mexican team to put up these kinds of showings. They went up against top countries and played great, but they always found ways to lose somehow. And then there's this saying, Jugar como nunca, perder como siempre. This translates into, play like never before, lose like always. There's countless examples that could be in its own video of Mexico playing to the level of their opposite, in some cases even outplaying them for the whole game. But what separates a good team from a great team is the ability to get back up from these setbacks and grind out a result. Current form aside, Mexico is just one of those teams that is seemingly cursed. There's the curse that they can't make it past the round of 16, the curse that after 99 they can't win a major tournament. All those Copa America finishes, their finals appearances, those third places. Countless more examples that cannot be overstated. Argentina ended up being destroyed by Brazil in the finals 4-1. Their second loss to their arch rivals in finals in as many years. As fate will have it, the two teams will meet again in the following year. 2006 was a World Cup year and both teams caught up a mix of players from the last two tournaments. Remember how I said Jose Pekerman had a very unique way of picking the players he caught up? Well, he would look for players that would fit his style and tactics instead of making his tactics fit his players. And while it's a very valid way of choosing the team, there's no excuse to leave legends such as Walter Samuel, Juan Sebastián Verón, and Javier Zanetti off the World Cup list when they're in amazing form and had just led Inter to back-to-back Copa Italia wins. And thanks to Juventus being involved in a match-fixing scandal, the 2005-2006 Serie A championship. For the most part though, this Argentina team was still extremely strong, with a good mix of experience from players such as Captain Juan Pablo Sorín, who would make the World Cup be his clearing call for the national team, 𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒃𝒍𝒆, who was just coming off a season where he only appeared in 6 games for Manchester United, as he was injured for most of it, and youth with players such as Corinthians striker and captain Carlos Tevez. Tevez won the award for the best player in the Brazilian league the year before. He scored 31 goals during the 2005 season and 15 goals in 24 appearances during the 2006 season, before he transferred out after the World Cup. Then there's Javier Mascherano, who also played for Corinthians. Like 𝒐𝒐𝒏𝒊𝒃𝒍𝒆, he hadn't played much the 2 seasons before thanks to injuries. And then there's probably the most important young player of them all, 18-year-old Barcelona winger, Lionel Messi. The 2006 World Cup would be the first major international tournament that the future GOAT would appear in. He was fresh off leading Argentina to a U20 World Cup win in 2005. Back then it was known as the FIFA Youth Championship, but it's the same difference. Messi was a great talent and had promising potential as he became a regular in the Barcelona first team, playing in an attacking trio with legends such as Eto'o and Ronaldinho. This World Cup was the perfect place to become a household name and solidify his place as the young promising talent that would compete for future Ballon d'Ors. Pekerman was not the only manager to make questionable roster decisions. 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒄𝒌 made the controversial decision not to call up one of Mexico's best players in Cuauhtémoc Blanco. The Copa America star was Mexico's best playmaker at the time. He's also considered to be one of the greatest players to put on a Mexico jersey. However, he and 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒄𝒌 had a feud stretching back to 1996, where the Argentine was in charge of Las Águilas. He made an example out of Cuau for not conforming to his strict tactics. This escalated in 99, where the Mexicans celebrated a goal against 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒄𝒌's Atlas by lying down right in front of him. Things were taken to the next level when Blanco opted out of the 2005 Confederations Cup and the 2005 Gold Cup because Jorge Campos, who was then the assistant manager for Mexico, told Cuau to rest after he won the Liga MX Player of the Tournament that year, and that his place on the team would be safe. Blanco claimed that the two struck up an agreement allowing the then 32-year-old to rest during the summer, but then he was left off the team for the following World Cup qualifiers. This novella-like drama reached its climax when 𝒂𝒊𝒃𝒄𝒌 called up Atlas midfielder Rafael Garcia, who was his son-in-law to the 2006 World Cup, leaving Blanco as the odd man out. This would lead to fan protests which started at an Estadio Azteca and ended at the Mexican Federation headquarters. 𝒐𝒐𝒌 will go on to play no games during this World Cup. In the group stage, Argentina faced the Ivory Coast, who they beat 2-1. Completely demolished Serbia and Montenegro 6-0 in a game that's important for a few reasons, but mainly it was Lionel Messi's first appearance in the World Cup. He became the youngest person to represent el albiceleste at the age of 18 years, 11 months, and 24 days. He also had his recorded first World Cup assist and goal in this game as well, assisting the 4th goal in the 78th minute, 4 minutes after he was subbed on, and scoring the 6th and final goal in the 88th minute, thanks to an assist from Tevez. After clinching a ticket to the knockout stage early, Pekerman decided to rest several players, and as a result, Lionel Messi got his first start in a World Cup game against the Netherlands. The game ended up being a 0-0 draw, and Argentina topped their group thanks to goal difference. There are high expectations on 𝒐𝒐𝒌 thanks to their good finishes since the last decade or so. The expectations were even higher as the team were seeded into pot 1 of the World Cup, meaning that there is no way they could draw top teams such as host Germany, defending champions Brazil, and giants Italy and France. They will go into this tournament ranked the 4th best team in the world, so yeah, it's pretty high expectations. They were drawn into a group of Angola, Iran, and Portugal, who featured another featured GOAT candidate, Manchester United's Cristiano Ronaldo. Mexico did what was expected of them by defeating Iran 3-1, but then they lost all-time leading goal scorer and star forward 𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒌 for the rest of the group stage due to injury. Against Angola, 𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒌's absence was felt as Mexico weren't able to finish off countless chances and ended up in a 0-0 draw that truly felt like a loss. The result upset many Mexicans and prevented the Mexican team from clinching a knockout stage berth early. Mexico's final stand will be in the Veltins Arena located in Gelsenkirchen against group favorite Portugal. Though Mexico did have some early chances, it was Portugal who opened up scoring with a goal in the 6th minute. After that, Mexico struggled to find their footing. In the 22nd minute, another blow hit Mexico as captain Rafa Marquez conceded a penalty off a corner with a silly handball. Portugal's 𝒐𝒐𝒻 Sabrosa easily tucked it in for the 2nd goal, and now Mexico was in danger of not making the knockout stages at all. If Mexico couldn't get a goal back, all Angola would have to do is beat Iran by 1 to knock out the Mexicans. But thanks to a goal in the 29th scored by Kikín Fonseca, a buffer was added. But if Angola beat Iran by 2, it will cause the same result of knocking out 𝒐𝒐𝒃. Mexico had their chances as the game went on, but a class showing from the goalkeeper Ricardo and poor finishing from La Volpe's side kept Portugal in the lead. The pressure started to rise for the Mexicans as without another goal to tie the game, their hopes rested on the Iran defense, who had conceded 5 goals in their prior 2 games. In the 57th minute, Mexico had a chance to level the game thanks to a handball which led to a penalty. Chivas striker Omar Bravo, who would become Chivas' all-time top goal scorer in 2015, stepped up to take it. The pressure was on. Bravo had the opportunity to secure a spot in the knockout stage and give Mexico the opportunity to win the group and dodge Argentina if another goal was to be scored. But Bravo sent the penalty into the stands, breaking the hearts of Mexicans around the globe. It was not a good game at all for Bravo as he missed several key chances throughout the game, including one shortly after his missed penalty. In the 61st minute, things got worse for Mexico as midfielder 𝒐𝒐𝒃𝒆 was sent off after earning his 2nd yellow for a flop in the penalty box. A few minutes later, things got even worse for Mexico because of news from roughly 450 kilometers away in Leipzig. Angola scored a goal and they were hunting for another. Now Mexico had to hold off Portugal and score down a man or hope that Iran could stay strong and either equalize or not concede another. This was the table going into the final 20 minutes of both games. As the second half went on, Mexico started to dominate the match even though they were down a man, but poor finishing led to a goal not falling. Thankfully for Mexico, Iran was able to equalize in the 75th minute, securing the 2nd place spot for Mexico and a date with Argentina in the round of 16. The stage was set for the next matchup for both teams. On the 24th of July in the Zentralstadion in Leipzig, the 2 teams played in an official tournament for the 3rd time in 3 years. The sold-out stadium was buzzing as fans from both Latin American countries got ready to see who was going to advance to the next round. Though La Volpe's side struggled a bit in the group stage, this is still widely considered by many to be the best Mexican side ever, and they had to face off against an extremely talented yet familiar Argentina side, who went into the tournament as one of the favorites to win it all. It would be a true test to see if Mexican soccer was ready to take the next step forward. The game was hard fought. In the 6th minute, Pavel Parro sent in a cross from a free kick which found Monterrey defender Mario Mendez deflected to the far post. The ball landed right at the feet of a streaking Rafa Marquez, who lost Gabriel Inze on his run that started from outside the box. With one touch, the sliding Marquez found the top of the net, and to everyone's surprise, Mexico was leading Argentina. Argentina didn't take long to respond, as in the 9th minute there was a corner where they found Hernán Crespo 1v1 with 𝑻𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌. While 𝒊𝒂𝒂 did a valiant job defending Crespo, he did end up deflecting the ball into his own net for an Argentina goal. There is some debate about who actually scored the goal. FIFA and Crespo claimed that the goal was Crespo's and that 𝒊𝒂𝒂's deflection did little to change the course of the goal. But to many others, this was an own goal by 𝒊𝒂𝒂. The game was a battle of the nines, as 𝒊𝒂𝒂 tried his hardest to make up for his own goal, while on the other side, Hernán Crespo was doing the same. Both goalkeepers also carried their weight, making their fair share of saves. And then Tevez and Messi came into the game to give life to a tired Argentina. And it looked like if Argentina was going to come away with a victory, it would be because of one of them. In the 92nd minute, Riquelme found Aymar alone in the penalty box, who laid it off to a trailing Messi for a tap-in. This was a time before VAR though, and the linesman unfairly called offsides on the initial ball to Aymar, who on replay was shown to be kept onside by Gonzalo Pineda. With the goal wrongfully disallowed, the two teams went into extra time, both confident that they could win. 7 minutes into extra time, Sorin switches the play and the ball finds Maxi Rodriguez at the edge of the 18-yard box. Gonzalo Pineda is there marking him, but he doesn't put on pressure, allowing Maxi to control the ball with his chest. Takes a step and waits for the ball to come down. He volleys the ball with his left foot, his non-dominant foot, yet it streaks past the gloves of a diving Osvaldo Sanchez to find the back of the net, killing the hopes and dreams of Mexican fans everywhere. Mexico couldn't score the equalizer and they were left out of the quarters. The saying from earlier rang true again: Jugar como nunca, perder como siempre. 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌's side gave one of the games of their careers, going up against one of the tournament favorites, only to have their dreams killed thanks to an amazing goal. Of course, for Mexico fans, there's a lot to be proud about. The team lived up to the moniker of 𝒐𝒂𝒄𝒌. They went toe-to-toe with a giant of soccer on the biggest stage and almost pulled off the upset. 17 years later, there are still many questions asked about the team. What if 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌 caught up Guau? What if 𝒊𝒂𝒂 didn't get injured and played against Angola and Portugal? What if Bravo scored that penalty? What if Pineda didn't allow Maxi all that space to control and volley the ball? But that's all they are, questions. Nothing could change the past. Mexico's performance in this World Cup will be applauded by many. El Bicotón caught the eye of many, but one person stands out the most. While playing for the Mexican team Dorados de Sinaloa and later as a journalist covering the 2006 World Cup for El País, Pep Guardiola would say that 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌's style was his favorite and even wrote a whole article talking about the way Mexico played. Later as a coach, Guardiola would build off some of 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌's tactics and would revolutionize the game. Pep named 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌 as one of his inspirations because of how Mexico would build up their attack. In that same article, Pep named it after a player and sang his name in praise. It's no other than Ricardo Osorio, the same man who missed a penalty the year prior. He showed so much quality in this game that Pep claimed that he could not only play for Real or Barca, but he could play in any squad in the world if given the chance. Once Mexico went down, he went on the attack and the defender was basically a winger for Mexico, trying to create chances on the right side and threatening the Argentine squad. Argentina will go on to play the quarterfinal against host Germany. Full time ended 1-1 and stayed level after extra time. Surprisingly, Messi didn't see any field time at all, something that left many scratching their heads, as the belief is that he could have helped at Celeste, and instead Argentina ended up losing 4-2 in penalties, thanks to the two great saves from keeper Oliver Kahn. This would end up being a disappointment since Argentina went into the tournaments as one of the favorites, and with such a deep and talented squad, many consider this to be one of their greatest teams and should have reached at least the semifinals. After the World Cup, 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌 stepped down from the Mexico job and went back home to manage Argentine giant Boca Juniors. Replacing him was a legend of soccer, Hugo Sanchez. Previously, he was the interim manager in 2000, and after winning back-to-back championships with Pumas and then stepping down after being one of the worst teams in the league that year to being the manager of Nunca for 7 games where he only won 2 matches and lost 4, he was named 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌's replacement shortly after the World Cup. 𝒂𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌 and Sanchez had beef too. It stems from when they were both players in the 70s, but really kicked off when 𝒂𝒂𝒄𝒌 was manager for Atlante and Hugo Sanchez was a player for him in the 94-95 season. Hugo will compare Atlante to his last team, Rayo Vallecano, to which el Bigotón would say, "How can you compare Atlante with Rayo? You descended with Rayo. We came from being champions of Mexico in the 92-93 season, and the gentleman came after having descended in Spain. He already had been in America and nothing happened. He went to Rayo Vallecano to descend, and he supposedly comes to fix Atlante. For God's sake." Hugo's time as Mexico's manager up to this point has been unsuccessful. In the 2007 Gold Cup, Mexico struggled and ended up losing 2-1 to the United States in the final. But he now sets his sights on the big one, Copa America 2007. Thanks to an injury to starting striker Borghetti, which left him off the 2007 Copa America roster, a new face was made starting striker, a 23-year-old by the name of Neri Castillo. Playing for the Greek team Olympiacos, Neri had a hard time deciding what national team he wanted to play for. He was eligible for the place of his birth, Mexico, for the place where his father is from and where he lived until the age of 16, Uruguay, for the place from where his grandparents were born, Italy, and finally the place where he had resided since 2000, Greece. Greece had reportedly offered to give Neri $800,000 and fast-track citizenship, but ultimately he picked Mexico. Prior to this tournament, Castillo was the subject of controversy, as in his last game for the Greek side, he stole a free kick from a player from his own team, snaking up from behind and shooting it. He did score, but that's not something you could do. Returning to the national team was Cuauhtémoc Blanco, who had just become one of the highest paid MLS players thanks to his move to the Chicago Fire in April of that year. Argentina was now led by 𝒂𝒄𝒌. He had previously led Argentina from 91 to 94 and was the manager for the last Copa America win in 93. Messi was coming off a breakout year where he would have 17 goals and 36 appearances. His good form would continue for the rest of 2007, earning him 3rd place in Ballon d'Or and 2nd place in FIFA World Player of the Year at the age of 20. Mexico opened up their group stage with a 2-0 win over defending champions Brazil, and Neri Castillo started his Mexico career strong with a goal in this game. And you know what? Let's watch this goal. It's just too much of a banger to skip.
Allá va Israel Castro, segmento del juego, cortesía de Verizon Wireless. Juega Cacho para adelante. Neri, la gran jugada. ¡Golazo!
Man, what a... The second was also this banger by Ramoncito Morales.
También está Alex y Robinho. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 en la barrera y tocado que estorba. Atento Doni. El cancerbero brasileño le pega a Ramón. ¡Golazo!
Mexico would then beat Ecuador 2-1 with goals from Neri Castillo again and Omar Bravo. Next was a 0-0 draw with Chile. The results were enough to earn them 1st place in their group. Argentina opened up their group stage with a 4-1 dismantling of the US, a 4-2 win over Colombia, and finally a 1-0 win over Paraguay. They also clinched 1st, and the two teams could potentially meet in the semifinals if they could both win the quarterfinal games. In the quarters, Mexico demolished Paraguay 6-0 thanks to a great showing from Neri Castillo. He scored 2 goals and earned a foul that gave the Paraguayan goalkeeper a red card. This was all within the first 6 minutes, and he completed his hat-trick in the 39th. The goals in that game were just banger after banger for Mexico, who punched their ticket to the semis with this dominant performance. Argentina, not to be outdone, beat Peru 4-0 with all 4 goals being scored in the second half. The entire team played great, but as always, Messi had moments where he was just a magician with the ball, and his performance was topped off by a beautiful goal that megged the keeper. Both teams topped their group. They were unbeaten and they were coming off blowouts in the quarters. They were set to meet in the semis now. And so is it, the two teams met again for the 4th year in a row. Mexico looked to keep up their good performance streak against Argentina and make it to another Copa America final. Argentina was looking to end an old era and start the new one with a bang. You had the young talent in Tevez, Messi, and Mascherano, and they were becoming focal points in the team, while players such as Juan Verón, Roberto Ayala, and Hernán Crespo were looking to end their 13-year Copa America drought. The game was pretty even at first. There was some back and forth between the two teams, and it wasn't the best soccer, as both teams were missing clear opportunities and made easy mistakes. But it was played at an entertaining pace, with loads of chances for both teams. As the first half was winding down, it felt like the two teams were going to go into the break level. That was until Argentina was given a free kick in the 44th minute. Even though the ball was set around 40 yards from the goal, all eyes were looking at Riquelme to challenge Osvaldo and shoot at goal. Instead, Riquelme sends a beautiful chip to the back post to find a shrieking 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌, who slipped by 3 Mexican defenders unmarked and catches Osvaldo in no man's land. 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌 will slip the ball past Osvaldo with his first touch. A killer blow for 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌, who had their own fair share of chances but couldn't convert. In the early moments of the second half, Mexico did have chances to level, none better than in the 54th minute with this amazing play from Neri Castillo, who makes a perfect run between 2 defenders and covered with a beautiful ball from Rafa Marquez. Neri finds himself one-on-one with the goalkeeper. Castillo controls the ball and tries to loft it over the keeper, but he barely misjudges the height and hits the crossbar. Mexico's best chance squandered by only a few inches. Argentina would then go on to increase their lead by 1 thanks to a beautiful play by Messi. He's wide open on the right side of the field and then chips it over Osvaldo, who was off his line. From then on, Argentina dominating and crushed Mexico, controlling the pace of the game with their possession. 3 minutes later, Argentina was awarded a penalty thanks to a foul on Karl Tevez by Marquez. Riquelme steps up to take it and then easily scores a goal with a penalty, all but confirming Argentina's date with Brazil in the finals. Nothing really happened for the rest of the game, though there were some chances here and there, but overall it was just Argentina dominating the game until the clock struck 90 and the ref blew the whistle to end the game. Just like that, a great tournament came to an end for 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌, losing 3-0. Sure, this loss didn't sting like the last 2 for fans, but in many ways this one hurts more. Only a year from an amazing showing by the Mexican team on the heels of a great tournament, where they were a firm belief that they could shock the world by winning the entire thing, they were humiliated by a familiar foe that had prevented them from reaching glory several times before. But this time it was even more embarrassing than previous years. It's one thing to fight your heart out and at some points even outclass a superior opponent, but it's another to allow yourself to be walked over and lose without a whimper. Did Mexico have their chances? Yeah. But overall, their final performance left much to be desired after the amazing performances that 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌 had in recent years. Oh wait, did I say Mexico's tournament was over? They played the 3rd place game against Uruguay, coming back from a 1-0 deficit to win 3-1, thanks to a penalty from Cuauhtémoc and bangers from Omar Bravo and Andrés Guardado. For the 2nd time in a row, Argentina lost to Brazil in the finals, being humiliated 3-0 by their arch rivals thanks to a beautiful goal from Julio Bautista, an impressive own goal from Roberto Ayala, and a nice finish from Dani Alves. And overall, just a disappointing end for el albiceleste. After 4 years of consecutively playing each other in major tournaments, Argentina and Mexico didn't meet in 2008 and 2009. But they did meet in 2010 during the World Cup hosted by South Africa. After failing to qualify for the Olympics and struggling during the World Cup qualifiers, Hugo was replaced by Javier 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌, who had previously led 𝒐𝒏𝒂𝒄𝒌 during the 2002 World Cup. Osvaldo Sanchez was replaced as the country's goalkeeper after he was seen begging a Honduran player to not score another goal because there was no way for Mexico to come back while down 1-0. Naturally, his replacement would be 24-year-old 𝑚𝒊𝒂𝒄𝒌, who had been considered Mexico's best goalkeeper. Wait, the starting spot was given to 37-year-old Conejo Perez. Well, age was catching up to Jared Borghetti, who would retire later that year. Neri Castillo was set to lead Mexico up front. Oh, he had behavioral problems and was perceived as a locker room cancer. After a shoulder injury and the death of his parents, he was just a shell of himself just 3 years prior. He didn't even make the 23-man list for the World Cup. At least Mexico still had new Manchester United signing Chicharito Hernández, who just came off a breakout season at Chivas and had scored 8 goals in just 5 games to start the season. After missing 5 games from injuries, he ended the season as Liga MX's joint top goal scorer with 10 goals in 11 appearances. And 𝒐𝒃 decided to start free agent Guille Franco, who was released by West Ham in May and was in terrible form, only scoring 5 goals in 23 appearances. He wouldn't go on to sign a contract with another team until January of 2011. Well, at least the reins of the team was handed to the young, golden generation of Mexican talent that had just won the Under-17 World Cup, with talents such as Carlos Vela, Giovanni Dos Santos, and Héctor Moreno. The team was rounded off with the experience of players like Rafa Márquez, Gerardo Torrado, and of course a 37-year-old 𝒂𝒄𝒌 𝒂𝒄, who was playing in Mexico's second division at the time. Oh yeah, and our good friend Ricardo Osorio is back. He's in the middle of a great redemption arc after missing that penalty. He, along with his fellow Mexican teammate Pavel Parro, even won the Bundesliga with Stuttgart in 2007. Argentina now had a 22-year-old Messi, who for lack of better words was well into his journey into becoming one of the GOATs. Having just won the Ballon d'Or in 2009 and led the Barca to a sextuple with 6 top championships, he was considered one of the best in the world. They also had Angel Di Maria, who would sign with Real Madrid during the tournament, Gonzalo Higuaín at forward, who was also at Real, Tevez, who was now at his prime at 26 and now at Manchester City, a 22-year-old Agüero who played with Atlético Madrid, and they were captained by Javier Mascherano. They had a deep squad on paper and they were led by their legend, Diego Maradona. They struggled in qualifying and didn't secure their spot in the World Cup until they beat Uruguay 1-0 in their last qualifying match. But with such a deep squad attacking wise, they were still among the favorites to win the World Cup. Mexico drew host South Africa, Uruguay, and 2006 runner-up France. In the opening match of the World Cup, they faced South Africa. After going down 1-0 in the 55th minute, Rafa Márquez was able to put it even in the 79th. Mexico's next game was against France, and they won 2-0 with goals from Chicharito and 𝒂𝒂𝒄, which was a penalty. Their third and final match to see who was going to top the table was against Uruguay. They lost 1-0 with a goal from Luis Suarez in the 43rd. With South Africa only beating France 2-1, Mexico was able to clinch second via goal difference. Argentina beat Nigeria 1-0 with a goal from 𝒖𝒍𝒐 at the 6th minute. They beat South Korea 4-1 with an own goal and a hat-trick from Higuaín. Versus Greece, they won 2-0 with goals from 𝑑imichelis and Palmero at 77 and 89 respectively. Argentina will go on to top their group. On the 27th of June at Soccer City in Johannesburg, Mexico faced Argentina in front of 84,000 people. Surprisingly, Vasco started one of my favorite players in Adolfo El Bofo Batista. This decision shocked many considering he was well beyond his prime. It's been said that El Vasco gave El Bofo the start because of how well he played against Argentine teams in Copa Libertadores 4 years prior. In the positive, El Vasco also did give Chicharito his first start at the World Cup. It was a back and forth game at first, but that all changed when Tevez scored a goal in the 26th minute where he was miles offside. Mexico argued with the refs and replays showed that he was offside. But since there was no VAR, the call could not be overturned. Then the dagger struck. In the 33rd minute, Higuaín scored a goal off a mistake from my old friend Ricardo Osorio. He passed the ball directly to Higuaín, who would score, putting an 𝒖𝒑𝒂𝒂𝒂 up 2-0. You can't help but feel bad for Osorio. He was such a great player, and people make mistakes all the time and bounce back. Hell, he did it 5 years earlier after that Confederations Cup game. But something about making a huge error at that point of your career at that stage is a legacy killer. He had just turned 30 that March. Not ancient, but it's a lot less time to make a comeback than at 25 like he was at 2005. While the team supported him, he would go on to cry after the game. In the years after, he is constantly asked about his mistake, even going on record, half joking, asking the entire country of Mexico for forgiveness. And it's not like his career after this was over. He would go on to return to Mexico playing for Monterrey and be part of a team firing on all cylinders and become an undisputed starter for that team. He'd go on to win a Liga MX title and 3 CONCACAF Champions Leagues with the team before his retirement in 2016. However, this game would basically be the end for his time with the national team. He would feature in 2 more games for Mexico in some friendlies in 2011, but not play a full 90 in either. It's easy to remember the mistakes of someone that isn't you, and it's even easier to not acknowledge the accomplishments of others that have made mistakes. So for the last picture of someone who was a key figure for these games, I leave this. Osorio after winning the Bundesliga, his biggest accomplishment where he was on top of the world. Let's get back to the game. Tevez scored again in the 52nd with a banger, all but clinching the win for Argentina and setting them up with a date in the quarterfinals from Germany. And though the game was well out of reach, Chicharito got one back with a banger at the 71st. The offside goal call is believed to be the reason why Italian ref Roberto Rossetti was left off the list of the 19 refs who will continue reffing, and shortly after he announced his retirement as a ref. Mexico failed to reach their goal of reaching el quinto partido, or the quarterfinals again, and Argentina went on to the quarters to play Germany. and got destroyed 4-0. Argentina again underperformed in the World Cup that they went into as favorite. After the tournament, 𝒐𝒂𝒄𝒌 promptly resigned and Maradona's contract was not renewed.